Welcome back. All right, so this is the first time I've ever worn this jersey. I got this yesterday. This is actually the CCM version of this. The only one I had was the Fanatics version, which was a placeholder until I found one that was in good shape, and it is. And it's a Fisherman. And you know what? I do like the Fisherman jersey. I like it because it only lasted for like a year, and then they went, all right, so the rebranding doesn't work. The Islanders, their branding now does work. So the logo is very identifiable. I would guess that when they were in Brooklyn, there was some toying with the idea of, going to that white NY and all of that. But in the end, they're going into the new building this coming season, and they're a pretty good team. So their record this year was 32-17-7. They ended up finishing fourth in their division, but in the playoffs, they showed a Barry Trotz coach team is going to contend. Now, the question of whether or not they have the right offensive pieces to get the goals, I think there's something to that, but I also think in Trotz's coaching style, it may hinder some of the scoring that we would otherwise see as well. So in the first round, they knocked out Pittsburgh in 6. Second round, they knocked out Boston, also in 6. Both series, Pittsburgh was favored, Boston was favored, so the Islanders were underdogs the whole way along, and they were underdogs in the last series too, which they lose in 7 against Tampa. So if we've learned anything this year with the Islanders, they're pretty good. They're a pretty legit team, and it's going to be interesting to see how things go from here. There's that comparison with Lou Lamoriello to other GMs and whether or not he's got bad contracts. My argument would be most GMs have at least one bad contract. But the way this team is put together is not too shabby. But they do need, I would say, one more forward that can put the puck in the net. And whether or not that's Wahlstrom in a full-time role next year, or whether or not Kiefer Bellows finally gets a regular job next year, there does seem to need to be some sort of a change in the... And it's not a big change either. Like, they don't need to do a whole lot here. Things are pretty darn good. Their power play in the regular season, 18.75%. In the playoffs, 20.4%. Struggled against Tampa, but overall in the playoffs, pretty good. Penalty kill, 83.7% during the regular season, and then in the playoffs, it finishes 65.1%. You want that to be higher. In fact, if it was 10% higher than that, you're still looking at going, 75? Can we get that higher? So, yeah, that's one thing that they would need to work on, but really, in all honesty, I don't think the Islanders are that far off. And again, as I've said with other teams, that can be the biggest test, is whether or not a GM can add the right pieces in order to get a team over the top in the playoffs. So, they're pending unrestricted free agents. Well, they've got a couple of rentals here. Both Kyle Palmieri and Travis Zajac rentals. I would not be surprised to see Palmieri go back to New Jersey, and this experience of going to the conference finals / semifinals, it can only be a benefit to him if he does go back to New Jersey. Zajac, we'll see. We'll see if he ends up going back to the Devils. Casey Cizikas, I would think he stays. I would think the Islanders find a way to keep him. And Andy Green. I think Green played well enough that if he wants to come back again, I think they'll make room for him. And if he doesn't, they can likely replace Green without too much trouble using the UFA market. Pending restricted free agents. Nothing major here, like Anthony Beauvillier, who, when we look at the protected list for the Islanders, it'll be interesting to see who gets protected and who doesn't, because it's possible, not probable, but it's possible Beauvillier wouldn't be protected by the Islanders. I've seen throughout the year certain lists saying, and I think he gets protected, but we'll see, because it's not that predictable, right? And so there's a couple things you're looking at. Is the player likely to get picked up? If the answer is no, you don't really need to protect him, so maybe being an RFA means it's no big deal. Kiefer Bellows, Adam Pelech. Pelech absolutely deserves money. Lots and lots of money. Pelech and Pulock are still one of the best tandems in the league. And they had their problems against Tampa because it's Tampa. Everybody has problems against Tampa. That's why they're on the verge of perhaps winning their second Stanley Cup in 2 years. Ilya Sorokin's a pending RFA. He showed how good he was, but it's only 1 year, so I would think bridge deals. So they're not really in any kind of trouble. Although they're going to need to shed cap, you would think, this summer if they're going to make some additions in the offseason. But we'll see. We'll see whether or not Lou Lamoriello is happy with what he has. But the 22 and under group, it's short. It's Noah Dobson and Oliver Wahlstrom. They definitely could use some more kids in that lineup, and they need Barry Trotz to play them. And it sort of reminds me of Dobson last year. Dobson, being a healthy scratch as often as he was, you can argue that made things better for him, but at least in the long term. But again, they need to get some more energy and youth into that lineup, I think. And Oliver Wahlstrom, as I said, if they want to get more goals, it may come from Wahlstrom. 32 and over, they've got some guys here. Cal Clutterbuck, Leo Komarov. Does Komarov stay, or do they try to find a taker for that contract? Does that contract age poorly? I thought Komarov played well. I did, and he's got a lot of heart. No offense. So if he's plugged into one of your top two lines, you're not going to get scoring from him. So that's where the problem is with that. Travis Zajac, as I said, Zajac, probably just a rental. Andy Green, mentioned over here, pending UFA. And Semyon Varlamov. So for Varlamov, he's getting a little bit older, but he's a goaltender, so goaltenders tend to age better. And they've got Sorokin as well. So Sorokin's only 25, 26. So they're good in goal. Top regular season scorer, Matthew Barzal. Barzal, 55 games, 17 goals, 28 assists, 45 points. I love Barzal. The last game that I saw live was the Islanders in against Vancouver on March 10th, I think, of last year. And then, of course, everything just closed down the next night. But Barzal really impressed me in what I saw. And I think he's probably a better player than people might give him credit for. And I do wonder if maybe Barry Trotz's system causes him to score less than he would otherwise. In the playoffs, he's their leading scorer again. 18 games, 6 goals, 8 assists, 14 points. And yet Barzal had his struggles here and there, but he's still their leading scorer in the playoffs. Regular season and postseason, same goaltender that's their number one. We'll see if that stays in effect next year with Sorokin, right? But Varlamov, their starter in the regular season, 19, 11, and 4. His overall save percentage is .929 during the regular season, 2.04 goals against average. They didn't allow a lot of goals. In the playoffs, he's 7 and 7, 922 save percentage, 2.56 goals against average. So the goals against a little bit higher in the playoffs than in the regular season, but he did have that one game where things weren't going his way, so that's definitely going to boost up the numbers in the wrong direction for him. Their last 5 seasons, so if we look back at their most recent seasons, they were 32, 17, and 7 this season. To, of course, go to the semifinals. They lost in 7 against Tampa. Last season, they were 35, 23, and 10. They lose in the conference finals against Tampa, so it was 7 games this time around, 6 games the year before. 2018, 2019, 48, 27, and 7. They went to round 2, and they lost in 4 straight to Carolina, and that was right after the sweep had happened with the Islanders against Pittsburgh. So the Islanders swept Pittsburgh, Boston, and yeah, there was a lot of reverse sweeping going on in that. And by reverse, I mean the team that swept in one round would get swept in the next. 2017, 2018, they finished 35, 37, and 10, no playoffs. 2016, 2017, 41, 29, and 12, also no playoffs. So the last 3 years, they haven't got knocked out in the first round. The last 2 years, they've been the Final Four. And so it's a matter of trying to get over the top. The best contracts they have going forward, I went with Jean-Gabriel Pageau, and I understand that there's some who will say, oh, well, he's not worth the money in the regular season, which I could understand, but he's a playoff performer. I don't think he was 100% by the end of that series against Tampa. $5 million they're paying him until 2026. Very reasonable cap hit. And Ryan Pulock for 1 more year at $5 million. That's reasonable. And not only that, but if they use Pulock in order to decide how much they're going to sign Pelech for, he may make a little bit less money than might be expected if the Islanders take the same attitude towards how much they make as the Boston Bruins do, which is give money back, want to stay as an Islander, give the chance to Lou Lamoriello to build out the team around us and remain a contender rather than go for your maximum payday. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Islanders next season because, again, they're right on the verge. They're close. They're almost there, which can be tougher than getting knocked out in the first round. It can be tougher than, oh, well, they didn't make the playoffs. It can be tougher to get close and go, we're so close, and then end up getting knocked out. So we'll see what happens next year and what kind of moves are made by the Islanders to deal with their pending unrestricted free agents, restricted free agents, and see who ends up going to Seattle from this team as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.